So now we pick up where I've left middle school and my adoptive parents have separated, and we've gone from my childhood home to a condo only for a few months, then to a house. So we were living in Randallstown. My parents separated. My mom got a condo in Randallstown before we ultimately ended up moving to Woodlawn. That little space of time where it was just her and I was the most peace I had had in my childhood up at that point. And I really thought that it was just going to be me and her. I had a dog. She was still working full time, so I still spent a lot of time alone. But we didn't have my adoptive father's overbearing nature. And see, this is the space where she could have made a decision to just make it about us, heal me. And maybe if I were her natural child, that's what she would have done. I don't know. Some parents, some mothers just put their own needs before their children. I know that when I was on drugs, I put my addiction before the needs of my own children, but as far as love, there's nothing that would ever come before my children. I just don't feel like anything else matters. So we stayed in that condo for a few months, and then she moved us to this ugly yellow house in Woodlawn. Now, I don't know how many of you are from Maryland or if you're even familiar with Baltimore County or Baltimore City at all, but Randallstown is not Woodlawn. And I went from living a cushy, protected life to basically moving to the city. And I didn't know anything about street etiquette. I didn't know anything about socializing with boys. I didn't know anything about the hierarchy of girls. I didn't know anything about the up to date fashion or the coolest slang words. Like, I had been a private school educated, always in a correct extracurricular activity, completely education minded person who was basically alone most of the time. So I didn't know how to behave in society for real, for real. And I certainly didn't know how to be accepted in like urban society. It was crazy. It was like throwing me into the lion's den. Moving from Randallstown to Woodlawn was a complete nightmare. When I moved there, I did not know that I would get a bad reputation only hanging out with guys. I did not know when I first moved there, all the guys made a bet to see who could sleep with me first. I did not know that when I moved there, that every girl in that neighborhood was going to try to fight me. And when I would get on the bus to start school, it was my first year in high school. And before I even started high school, when my mom had moved us to this new house in Woodlawn, I didn't know that I had been pregnant from a much older person that had been my boyfriend. So this is how old are you in your last year in middle school? However old that is, that was when I got pregnant and I didn't know it. So I guess it would have been around the summer that I had been in my living room and just got horrible, horrible cramps in my stomach. And my adoptive mom's sister lived across the street, and she was married to my uncle, who has always treated me very well. For some reason, the uncles were always nice to me. It was my adoptive mom's sisters that didn't really care for me or like take me on as an actual family member for some reason. I had really bad cramps. I remember having really bad cramps and I couldn't get up and it was so painful. And for some reason back then they didn't call ambulances. My mom would never call an ambulance. They would always just drive you to the hospital. She called him and he carried me to the car. They took me to the hospital. Come to find out I'm pregnant. The baby's in my tubes. I have surgery. Almost died because my stomach had filled up with blood before I got into surgery, and like it was obstructed and it exploded. I had an ectopic pregnancy. Had one tool, and the doctor, they told me I would never be able to have children. I would go on to have six by one man, my ex-husband, who I was married to for 20 years, who is now dead. And then I had emergency surgery, and then I was met with this huge disappointment from my adoptive mom because she didn't know that I was sexually active. and didn't know I was pregnant. So I had to deal with that. Then I was dealing with my parents' imminent divorce. Then we're moving to a totally different place. We moved twice in 1 year. Then I'm starting high school, and then my face breaks out and like all types of acne. And then I don't even have like the coolest, newest, hippest clothes to go to school with, which is a big deal back in Baltimore. And those were all the things I was dealing with. So I was suicidal. So I got to start my new school year suicidal. And of course, true to her nature, she never discussed anything with me. I didn't get any therapy. I just had to sit in like shame and lies, because now I'm trying to make up lies about how I got pregnant and under the circumstances, because I'm not given the space to be honest about what happened, because life is life and things happen. And you would think that with her knowing my history and the issues with my adopted father, that she would have been more understanding, or at least have acknowledged what happened so we could deal with any trauma. And it doesn't make sense how later on in my life, when I start exhibiting certain behaviors that would make me a problem, why she didn't correlate that with my earlier trauma or care at all to do anything about it. It kind of just all happened, and I was just left to like suffer by myself. And I feel like that's another reason why I really started getting into drugs and hanging out in the street, because my friends treated me more like family than they did. And the drugs made the pain go away and made me be able to be around people socially. I've never been able to socialize without being under the influence of something that would make me more comfortable, because it was too much. Being around people is overwhelming, and they don't show their true faces, and the things that I see and feel inside of them, the things that I miss. I seem to attract people with predatory nature back then. It was pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So now I'm going into school. So I'm having all these psychological games played with me, because there's so much politics in a neighborhood that goes on beneath the surface. These people have grown up with each other. You're coming into somebody's territory. Nobody knows you. So now people are trying to see where your mind is at. The guys are going to come at you trying to get your panties dropped. And these are like people who are older than me and more experienced. I'm just coming out the house. Like, I don't know nothing about anything. So number one, I'm not knowing when people are lying to me. Number two, I'm not able to see, like, connect the dots with people. And I had to learn some life lessons on my back for sure, because I wasn't hip to what people's true intentions were. And I've been portrayed so much and played so much. It took so much for me to get here. And that's why I'm proud of the person I am. I'm proud of being able to defend myself and those that I love, because there was a time where I wasn't able to do that. I was the one that was getting picked on and being victimized. And I just thank God that I didn't grow up to be a person that treated others that way. Like, I love people down. Like, I don't even have to know you to love you. And I used to think that was a weakness, and people tried to make me feel like it was a weakness, but it's not. I remember when somebody that I helped called me soft, they took my kindness for weakness, but she ended up coming back on her knees apologizing to me. And I'm not bragging about that, but I'm just saying, funny how the world turns when you don't take gifts that God gives you, and you just don't appreciate people when all they try to do is love you. So that was my first year of high school, and chapter 8 of Blue Girl Wrapped in Brown. If you'd like to check out my music, it's available under my artist name, The Fury of Abyss, on all music streaming platforms worldwide. I've been trying to avoid chapter 7 like the plague, because as I'm talking to you about these stories, this is the first time I've talked about them in over 15 years. The only people that know these stories, other than the people involved in them, are my ex-husband, who was my best friend. And I feel like it's important, number one, for my kids to be able to go back and see my life. I feel like it's important for you to know where your parents came from. I don't have that. I'm adopted. I don't know where my real parents came from. And I just want to be able to actually heal all of my scars from my past so that I can be a better person and a better parent. And I don't want my kids to keep repeating unhealthy patterns, because growing up, I saw the family that I was adopted into repeat unhealthy patterns, generation after generation after generation. And I don't want to do that. I love my kids too much. I want them to be a million times better than me. And I'm sharing my story with you, hoping that maybe it helps someone. I find when you have been saved, you want to reach back and save somebody else. Thank you for spending time with me here in Fury World. I'll catch you in the next episode of Blue Girl Wrapped in Brown. Peace.